Thank you for joining me this morning for Public Speaking 101. And my name is John Shaffer. I'm with the graduate school here at UTSA. And so the first question that I have for you, and you can feel free to put it into the chat, is over public speaking anxiety. So from a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I'm good, bring it on, 10 being I'd rather step off a cliff than actually get in front of a group of people to public speak. What is your level of public speaking anxiety? So we have 4, 7, 6, 2. So I'm guessing this will probably match, but what do you feel is your level of presentation skill? So your level of public speaking skill. Sometimes that'll differ than your public speaking anxiety. Maybe you have anxiety, but you feel like you're a pretty good public speaker. So from, again, a scale from 1 to 10, what do you feel is your level of public speaking? 1 being not so great, 10 being excellent. Okay, we have 4, 8, 7, 3. Probably it kind of matches the public speaking anxiety. So you flip the number. That's fine. That's fine. So just FYI, most people, like as we're stepping into this, public speaking anxiety or overcoming public speaking anxiety is one of the primary things we need to get over to become an effective public speaker. So that's public speaking 101. Get over the anxiety, and because the anxiety is going to hold you back from being the best public speaker you can be. And so I'm going to give you some good tips on how to overcome that. But I do want you to know that you're not alone. About 77% of the world population has some level of public speaking anxiety. So the level I asked you, somewhere between 1 and 10, 77% have a fear of public speaking. So you're not alone. You're not odd. It is a reality. And so we're going to give you some tips. Now, interestingly, just a little side tip, there is a name, a phobia that goes along with the fear of public speaking. It's called glossophobia, which sounds like someone that's afraid of putting on lip gloss. That is actually not the case. It's called glossophobia. I don't know how that name is derived from fear of public speaking, but just a little side note for you. So how do we overcome public speaking? So here's some tips, whether you are presenting on campus, whether you're presenting at a conference, because ultimately, as a graduate student, the goal is go present your research at a conference potentially. And so we want you to be able to be prepared and ready to go give present your research at a conference or special session, institute, whatever. So the first thing that I always do is, because I've spoken at a number of conferences, so the first thing that I do is, prior to the session that I'm conducting, I'll go and look at, kind of scope out the room that I'm going to present at. First of all, knowing where the room is, the morning, the day, the afternoon that your session is, means you're not going to be late or get lost, right? So that's the first one, because that's a fear. It's like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to find the room? Well, if you know where the room is, then you won't have that issue. So there won't be that level of anxieties. Am I going to be late? Am I going to be able to find the room? Am I going to get lost? So that's laid to rest. The other thing that it enables you to do is, if you are able to see the room prior to the session, you kind of have an idea or concept in your head what your presentation atmosphere or environment is going to look like. So there's not that wondering, what's the room setup like? Is there a stage? What's the technology, et cetera, et cetera. So knowing the room will alleviate a number of pieces that add to anxiety. Obviously, this is not, knowing the room isn't going to be, it doesn't equate to public speaking directly, but it will reduce the anxiety coming up to the presentation. Knowing the audience is also important because you know how you're going to deliver the presentation. Is it going to be decision makers? Is it going to be colleagues? Is it going to be just kind of a general audience, a mix of audience, peers? So it's good to know who you're presenting to, because that will kind of help frame how you're going to deliver your presentation, reduce anxiety. Obviously, practice makes perfect, as they say. So knowing your stuff is extremely important. Being comfortable with the material. Now, when I say know your stuff, I'm not talking about memorizing your presentation. If you are giving a session at a conference, your session is going to be anywhere, depending on how the conference is set up. Your presentation time is going to be probably anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes, which does not include a Q&A time. So actual talk time is going to be 20 to 40 minutes. Don't want you to memorize how you're going to deliver your presentation, but you do want to be comfortable enough with the material that you can look at your notes, you can look at a slide on a screen, have some key points, know exactly what you're going to talk about. So we want you to sound organic, not robotic, but being comfortable with the material, knowing how the presentation is lined out, knowing okay, this is going to be the next slide. These are the key points. This is what I'm going to talk about with each key point. Doesn't have to be, again, do not memorize a presentation. That's going to cause you more anxiety, because when you try to memorize, let's say a script, for example, because in a sense, that's what you would be doing. You're memorizing a script. If you try to memorize it and then you forget a couple words in a part of the script, that's going to totally throw you off. It's better if you have talking points and then you talk, in a sense, off the cuff, but not off the cuff. You know what you're going to say, but you make it sound more conversational. You're telling a story about your research or whatever you're presenting over. Doesn't have to be research. It can be anything. It could be you're presenting over a chapter in your class. I know a lot of us do that in graduate school. You're presenting over a chapter. You're giving a presentation or a group presentation over a certain, with a certain project. So just be comfortable with the material. Will lower the anxiety. Learn how to relax. This is really, really good, because everyone has a different way that they, in a sense, decompress, which is, we're asking you, most people, you think decompress post something. We're asking you to decompress before you go on stage, for lack of a better phrase. So some of you may like listening to music. Maybe you have a certain music. Maybe you like to meditate. Maybe you like to take a walk. There could be many things that will allow you to relax and decompress, kind of lower that anxiety before you actually have to present. This next one, the visualize yourself speaking, kind of goes hand in hand with knowing the room. So, and I do this a lot. Obviously, over the past 2 years, almost everything has been virtual. But when I do present in person and I see the room or I know the room, I visualize myself speaking in the room, things that I'm going to be talking about, making sure I'm using the space as far as the presentation, not standing in one place, moving around, talking to the audience. Visualize yourself speaking in the space, and that'll be another way to lower anxiety. People want you to succeed. Now, one of the biggest things that lend to public speaking anxiety per research is, or what lends the most to the public speaking, is fear of judgment. And I think that's because you think, okay, if I mess up, think people are going to think poorly of me, people are going to judge me. Everybody has that because it's embarrassment, right? If you embarrass yourself, you are have a fear of being judged. But in reality, let's look at this in reality. Everybody that's listening to you wants you to succeed, whether that be faculty, your classmates, colleagues, peers. If someone is, or people are coming to listen to you present over a topic, they of course want you to succeed because they're there to get information. They're not there to see if you succeed or fail, which nobody's going to fail, right? We may make a misstep. We may make a misstep giving a presentation. Maybe we're talking and it happens to everyone. It's happened to me. I have verbalized it, whether it be virtual or in person. I totally forgot what I was going to say. I just stopped. My brain is not taking me to the next point or the next part of the sentence, and it just stops. It's okay. What you have to know is it's okay to flub, to make a slight mistake. Just make sure to not let the anxiety take over. Just take a drink of water, take a sip of your coffee, whatever you're drinking, make a joke out of it. You're not going to believe this. I literally forgot what I was going to say next. Take a moment. And if you can't immediately think about it, then say something like, I'm going to come back to that. Let's move on to the next topic. But you can make light of it. No one is there thinking, wow, that was horrible. No one is thinking that. Absolutely no one is thinking that. So everybody wants you to do good. Don't be afraid of judgment. Don't be afraid of, it's not even failure. It's making a very common mistake. I have been public speaking in one form or fashion professionally since I was, oh my gosh, 17, 18 years old. So back when I was in high school, because of the jobs that I've had, all of it has over the many, I won't say how many years, has lent to public speaking. And it has happened to me time and time again, but it doesn't stop me from pressing forward. It's not even, oh, I'll do better next time. It's not even that. You're prepared. You go in prepared. Things happen all the time. So don't worry. So as you know, even though I've been doing this for many years, those things still happen, and it's okay. I cannot stress this enough, and I'm sure we've all heard it in a presentation. It's usually because someone's extremely nervous. You may have done it yourself. Never apologize for being nervous. You can apologize for being late. You can apologize for forgetting what you're going to say next. You can apologize for wearing 2 different shoes, but never apologize for being nervous, because that sets an expectation. So first thing out of the gate, I've heard this, someone goes up to speak, please bear with me, I'm extremely nervous, or I'm so sorry, I'm really nervous, I hope this goes well. You are setting expectations. At that point, people are cringing, kind of hunkering down in their seat, they're picking up their phone because this is awkward. That's only going to add to your anxiety. Never apologize for being nervous. It's okay to be nervous. I'm not saying don't be nervous. I'm saying don't verbalize it. Don't put it out there into the ether, because that's just going to create negative energy. Concentrate on your message. I can't stress this enough, especially if you are new to presenting or newer. And that's new to presenting means you don't do this on a regular basis. Maybe in class, whether that be undergrad or graduate school, you have given a presentation once a semester, but you don't do this professionally. So what ends up happening is if you aren't kind of a veteran of public speaking, and if you get off on a tangent, so you kind of are talking about something and then that leads to something else, and then that leads to something else, but it's not what is, let's say, on the paper or on the slide, you can get so far off message that at the point when you're ready to come back to message, you have no idea where you are. And you have no idea what comes next, because you haven't stayed focused. You haven't stayed to the script, right? Your own script. So concentrate on the message, deliver the message. I'm going to talk about the next one last. So the final one obviously is gain experience. You can look for opportunities to give presentations. You can ask your department, hey, can I set up a lunch brown bag? You can do it virtually or in person, right? Now it makes it so much easier. It's so much easier to schedule a virtual session, because it's just boom, pop it into Zoom, send out a message to your department and people can register to attend or just attend. So you can set up a brown bag where you're presenting, like, let's say you're working on your thesis or dissertation, presenting a chapter of your research. You can present over a certain topic you're interested in. Utilize the resources that you have and provide that experience. Obviously, there is something called Toastmasters, which there is a local Toastmasters in San Antonio that you can gain practice. I believe there used to be, may still be, a Toastmasters student organization at UTSA. Good ways. No one's going to force you to present, right? But it provides you that opportunity to practice. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for a very long time, but so I know that it takes time to get to a level where you can step out and not have that anxiety. That being said, do I still get nervous? Absolutely. Absolutely, I still get nervous because it's that nervous energy. And I'm hoping, I'm speaking for myself, I'm hoping, okay, this is kind of what I'm going to say. This is the energy I'm going to bring. This is the space. I'm familiar with the space, but I'm getting up and speaking in front of 500 people, right? Sometimes that happens when I'm doing graduate school orientation. We've had groups of 500 people. And some of you are probably thinking right now, oh my gosh, I'd rather die. I am a firm believer that it matters less about the number of people and more about your preparation and ability to present the information. So whether it's 10 people or 500 people, it really doesn't matter. If you know your stuff, you're good to go, but you're still going to have, it's still going to have nervousness, and nervousness is anxiety. Anxiety actually creates a physical reaction in your body, and that comes out as high levels of stress or anxiety. But ultimately in your body, what is being produced is adrenaline. So adrenaline, because you're so nervous and your heart's pumping, and adrenaline is being produced in your body. Okay, so adrenaline, you have all this energy, and it's nervous energy. But what you want to do is grab that energy, harness that energy, and use it, and bring it out, and use that to enhance how you're going to present yourself and the material to people. So you're standing up bigger, you are pushing that information, you're pushing those words out, you're using a lot of energy to present. And if you can learn how to kind of harness that nervous energy and use it to your advantage, harness that adrenaline, use it to your advantage, it's ultimately, maybe not the first time, but as you progress, it's actually going to be kind of a fun ride for you. It's going to be a fun ride. It's going to be a fun ride for the audience because you are literally riding on adrenaline as you're going through your presentation. But you have to learn how to turn up negative into a positive. So take that negative energy caused by nervousness and anxiety and stress and turn it into positive energy that you can use to present. The last thing I will tell you, which is not on here, but I'm a firm believer of this, is when you are presenting, present as you would be presenting to your friends, when you're around your friends or your family, meaning be the best version and the truest version of yourself when you're up there presenting. Share who you are, not necessarily, and I don't mean verbally, hi, my name is John Shaffer and I'm an Aries and I'm 50 years old. And no, that's not what I mean. What I mean is be vulnerable to your audience. Let them see who you are as a person and then tell your story. That will also help you relax. And then there's a couple other pieces that go into this, which we're going to now go into, which is first impressions, because man, first impressions are going to set the tone, not only for the presentation, but I think how you carry yourself as a public speaker through the presentation. If you start off with a bang, you're going to feel good about it. And that feeling, that good feeling, that strong feeling, that confident feeling, as pointed out in bullet point 1, is going to carry you through, and you're going to maintain that level. If you take time to warm up, you walk up to give your presentation, you're a little timid, you're nervous, your voice is shaking, you're not really truly engaging with your audience, that's going to carry you, that's going to be the tone through the presentation. So you want to start off with a bang. How do you do this? There are many ways to do this. One way is, if you think of a stand-up comedian, what is one thing that almost every stand-up comedian says immediately when they walk out on a stage? Hey, how's everybody doing today? This evening, this morning? How's everybody doing? Get that reaction. Immediate icebreaker. You've immediately broken the ice. You introduce yourself. I'm John Shaffer, and I am the blah, blah, blah with the graduate school at UTSA, and I'm going to be talking about, etc. Maybe you can do a rhetorical question or an actual question to your audience. So let's take it from a perspective of when I do orientation as an example. So how many UTSA alumni are in the audience? So you're starting off with a bang, you're using that energy, you're not taking time to warm up, you're building a rapport with your audience. So there's an immediate engagement, everybody's relaxed, and then you can start going into the meat of your presentation, whatever you're there to talk about. And you want to make sure you speak clearly and confidently, have that tone. Remember, you're the expert. We're popping down to the last one. You're the expert in whatever you're talking about. Whatever they're there to listen to you, you're the expert. So speak as if you know, because you are. Speak as if you know you're the expert, because you are the expert. And then the other thing is, you want to show a level of passion for what you are talking about and how you're presenting the material. So you want to speak as if you really believe in what you're saying, because you should, because you're the expert. right? You're the expert in whatever research you're presenting or topic. So speak as if you believe, sound not only interesting, but interested. And I loved it because recently, I don't remember what I was watching, but it was something revolving around someone giving us a speech. And I heard those words, sound interesting and interested. Now that's not, I've had that as part of my presentation for years because I'm a firm believer of it. You want to sound interesting in how you're presenting and interested in the material. No one's going to want to listen to you if you're not interested in what you're talking about. So if you're not interested, why should the audience be interested? So make sure you use that passion for whatever you are talking about to relay that information to the audience. Obviously, engage your audience. As I said, it's good to make eye contact. This is a big, I think, mistake that a lot of people make. And normally this is due to nervousness. So think about you or people you've seen present. Put yourself in a room for a minute, whether you are the audience member or the presenter. Now, and think about a specific example, maybe recently, maybe last semester, where you are watching someone present. You see my cat blurred, that white blob. She decided to jump up on, and she's coming over, and she's probably going to talk here in a minute. So, but what they do, think about that person. Normally, if you're nervous and you're a little bit of a novice to public speaking, you'll get up, you will focus on one person. Usually they're going to be in the front row. And you talk to that person the entire time you're presenting. So in a sense, you're totally negating everybody else in the room and you're presenting to one person. You want to do your best not to do this. So what can you do if you're new? If you're new to presenting, sometimes it's just literally, you don't have to make eye contact with anyone, but it looks like you're kind of making eye contact with everyone. Is just kind of talk to the room. You're gonna move your body side to side, but naturally, not like a robot, right? Move your body side to side, and you're going to be making sure that you are connecting with the entire room. Not necessarily connecting with every single person, because depending on your audience, that may not be feasible, but making sure you're connecting with the room. If you're connecting with the room, sorry, Kona, that's enough. If you're connecting with the room, then everybody feels like they're a part. They're part of the presentation. Obviously, don't hide behind your notes. Don't hide behind a computer screen. Virtually, that's impossible, right? Virtually, that is literally impossible. But in person, we don't want you to hide behind your notes, because that is like a security blanket. You're creating a barrier between you and the audience. If you're standing solely behind a podium with a computer, you are, again, creating a barrier between you and your audience. It is for you, it's a safety barrier because you're nervous. You don't want to be vulnerable, but get out there and, okay, you don't want to get out there and create that barrier. You really want to engage. So step out from behind the notes, step out from behind the podium. It's okay to have notes with you, but the best way to make sure you don't read from your notes is that your notes should be basically just an outline of your presentation. So key points only, and I mentioned this earlier with the public speaking anxiety, keynotes only, or key points only that you can then expand off of. That will make sure you don't read from your notes. You're more speaking organically. You're being more like you're in a conversation. Add appropriate humor. Now, this depends on who you are and if you are everyday funny. So when you're talking, you can throw in, what basically what you say. People tend to think how you deliver just regular everyday information tends to be funny. We all know people like that. And so if you are like that, you can definitely add that humor, because going back to what I said earlier, being the truest and best version of yourself, right? So you want to be who you are presenting. Now, add appropriate humor does not mean throwing in a joke, because this is not, a stand-up comedy routine or a sitcom. It is a presentation, a professional presentation. So, but again, be the truest version of yourself. The other thing that I want to make sure, and this kind of goes back to the reading from notes, engaging your audience, is that make sure you're not reading your presentation. Now, I already said don't read from your notes, but even when you're creating any type, whether it be PowerPoint, Panopto, anything like that, if you're creating a presentation, making sure that also on these slides, your key points, because honestly, the software that you're using, whether that be PowerPoint or, like I said, Panopto or any other type of software, that's kind of, think about backup singers for a band, right? So you have the lead singer, let's say, I don't know, let's say Beyonce. So you have Beyonce. So you as the presenter, you're Beyonce. And then you have the band and the backup singers, right? So a presentation on screen, a PowerPoint or something like that, are your backup singers in your band. They're there to support you, but they're not there. They're not the people that everybody who paid admission came there to see, right? So you want to make sure that you are only using your presentation, your software or your electronic media as a support to you, because you are the show. You are the show. So that is another good way to make sure that you maintain that engagement with your audience and, create that, I think, also lack of a barrier, because ultimately, if you're reading your presentation, or I've seen this before, and you may have too, where someone has a big screen behind them and they have a PowerPoint presentation and they actually turn their back to the audience. They turn their back to the audience and start reading from their screen, or from the screen, and they're not actually looking at the audience anymore. Never do that. Never do that. Okay, body language and bad habits. These are funny, but true. First of all, everything communicates. When you get up in front of a group of people, everything communicates. Interestingly, when you're relaying a message, what is received, that message that's received, there's a percentage of the message that is received through your body language, through your tone, and through the actual content. But you'd think that the content would be the highest, but in reality, body language is the highest. So 55% of a message relayed is being communicated through your body language, 55%. 38% is the tone that you use. So you always want to be positive, engaging in your tone of voice. 7% is the message. Interesting, right? Interesting as you're relaying. We already talked about not hiding behind podium or notes in the last slide. Use your space, as I mentioned. I like to use the space to stand, walk, or move about. That'll also get rid of some of that energy if you're standing. So instead of standing in one space, and obviously using appropriate facial expressions. There are people that I know that are very expressive with their face. I don't see myself, but apparently I am one of those people. And so you kind of always, according to my mom, you kind of always know how I'm feeling or what I'm thinking based on facial expressions. Maybe not always 100% accurate, but fairly. And so when you're presenting, you want to make sure that you're using appropriate facial expressions. Let's not roll our eyes. Let's, keep everything positive, a little bit of a smile. Just make sure you're using those appropriately. Now, when we talk about bad habits, this is the biggest one. Watch the use of placeholders, the and the like. We all do it. We all do it in regular conversation. So of course, we're all going to do it in public speaking or giving presentations. But because we're nervous, we end up using more placeholders, the and the like. And we've seen presentations where every other word the most common ones are or. And that's because you're talking faster than your brain is processing the information. So you're throwing out the words and then you forget what's next. And if we go back to public speaking anxiety, that creates anxiety if we forget. So we'll throw in an or an and then we'll go on. It's okay to use those words once in a while. I'm not saying never use those words in a presentation. That's ideal. And we've heard people, usually radio personalities that are speaking off the cuff, maybe stand-up comedians, people that do public speaking all the time. They're professional at it. That's what they do for their job. There's very few. But as a novice, we just want to make sure to minimize. So how do you do that? As you're talking and you're getting to a point where, okay, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quick enough, ready to say the next thing. So I'm going to throw in a placeholder, but instead you just take a pause, maybe take a sip of water, coffee, and then go on. It may seem like an eternity to you, but ultimately it's less than a second or maybe a second. And then you continue. You can collect your thoughts immediately, move on with what you're saying. That's going to allow you to remove it. The other thing is slowing down your talking pace. So it may, as you practice, sound very unnatural because it almost sounds like when you're talking, you're breaking up a complete sentence. So you're breaking up a complete sentence. That's one sentence, but notice that there's a break. And that's because I'm processing what I'm going to say next. And I'm trying not to put in a placeholder, which I'm sure you have heard me use them already. I'm sure I have, but it's minimized. Hand gesturing. Are you a hand gesture? Do you fidget? Some people cracking knuckles. We've all seen it. Hand gesturing is fine. Just kind of keep it at a minimum. I use my hands when I talk. I'm expressive like that. But just like we're not going to be doing this, right? So just restrain with the hand gesturing. Fidgeting, you need to figure out a way. This is the one time where you need to figure out a way to cut that out. No fidgeting, playing with your hair, cracking your knuckles, playing with the rings on your fingers, anything that is fidgeting. We need to work on cutting that out. We already talked about the benefits of pacing yourself. That will reduce the placeholders. We talk fast because we're nervous. And then any other nervous habits you might have. I've heard people say that they rock on their heels when they present. That would be a nervous habit. That was a colleague of mine. One of the things that I told her is don't stand in one place. Walk around. that'll take care of that. So you have to figure out a way, if you have these, what I call them nervous tells when you're presenting, that you are aware of them and you drastically minimize them. Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about quickly, because I do want to leave it open for questions, is an elevator pitch. And the reason why I include this is because it's elevator pitches are big in higher education and research, because sometimes you do have to present in 2 to 3 minutes, and or a true elevator pitch is 20 to 30 seconds, because that's how it got its name. It's the length of an elevator ride. Sometimes, obviously, if you're stopping at every floor, it's longer than 20 to 30 seconds. So we're going to say ours is a longer elevator ride, 2 to 3 minutes, and you're using an elevator pitch to spark interest in a research project, research idea, or product. In your case, research product, research idea. And so you're throwing out your pitch, and there are things that you want to make sure you do, which we've talked about most of these. I just wanted to make sure to have this list for you for an elevator pitch, but be prepared. We've talked about that. Obviously, if you only have a couple minutes to speak, I gave myself about 40 plus minutes of talk time with you, and then to be able to answer questions. So I can talk whatever, I can throw in an anecdote, but in an elevator pitch, you really do have to be more concise. You have to boil that information down, deliver the key points to whatever audience you have, and basically get that plane off the runway, in the air, and landed in 2 to 3 minutes. It's basically what you need to do. So you need to be concise and focused. Simple and genuine, because you want people to, and this can go back to even a longer presentation, speak simply and genuinely so people understand what you're telling them, but also people believe, they buy in because they see you as a genuine person. And so if you're speaking simply, they can understand you, and you're speaking genuinely, they truly will believe in everything that you are telling them. Not to say they're gullible, but but you do want them to kind of buy in to what you're saying. I want you to buy in that you can be a really good public speaker. So I want to speak genuinely to you. Obviously, grab the listener's attention. We talked about this. What is an attention grabber? It may be a rhetorical question, a quick rhetorical question at the beginning. A lot of students do this when we do our 3MT competition. They'll start out their presentation. Have you thought about, did you realize, something like that? And they'll give some type of fact, but it's quick because you only have 2 to 3 minutes, and you really need to get to the meat of what you're wanting to present, but you want to grab them. How are you going to grab them? That's up to you. That's your own personal style. I can give you examples, but I can't say this is what you should do. It's kind of your own style. How do you want to grab the listener? Remember, be the truest version of yourself. Ask qualifier questions. We just mentioned that. Rhetorical questions, qualifier questions. Tailor your pitch to your audience. We've talked about that, making sure you know your audience. Tell a consistent story from beginning to end. Don't get off topic. Don't get off topic. Make sure you're consistent from the time you start till the time you end, a consistent story, and be creative in the way you're going to present. You should not present like your classmate. You should not present like your faculty member. You should present like you. How are you going to relay the information? So you personally, what's your way of being creative in telling your research story? And I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn off the recording.